It was one of those warm weekend mornings when the sun seemed to lift everyone's mood a little higher. The marina was peaceful, the kind of place where the smell of the ocean mixed with the sound of ropes knocking gently against metal cleats. Boats rocked softly in the water, and a few early visitors strolled along the docks with coffee cups in hand. Jordan arrived carrying a small cooler in one hand and a folded checklist in the other. He loved mornings like this. They reminded him why he worked so hard, so he could carve out moments of calm on his yacht, a place that felt like his own escape from the noise of life. His boat, a sleek white vessel named Horizon Blue, had been his pride for years. He had saved carefully for it, spent countless hours maintaining it, and learned every inch of it by heart. Out he walked down the dock, nodding politely to a couple cleaning their fishing gear. The marina staff smiled at him. Most of them knew him well, as he visited often. Jordan placed the cooler on the deck of his boat and began running through his usual routine, checking the lines, looking over the gauges, and making sure the cabin ventilation was running. Everything felt normal until he sensed a pair of eyes lingering on him. At first, he ignored it. Marinas attracted curious onlookers all the time. Some people admired boats, others were simply waiting for friends. But this gaze was different, tense, unsettled, almost suspicious. A woman stood a few steps down, arms crossed tightly, eyes fixed on Jordan as if she were trying to solve a puzzle she didn't like. Jordan didn't think much of it. He kept working, wiping down a railing and checking the fuel gauge. But the woman didn't look away. Instead, she started walking toward him, her expression growing more stern by the second. Jordan looked up politely. "Good morning," he said, offering a gentle nod. She didn't return the greeting. Instead, her brows pinched as she scanned the boat from bow to stern. "Can I help you with something?" Jordan asked calmly. "Yes," she said, her voice sharp. "I want to know what you're doing on this yacht." Jordan blinked, surprised by her tone. "I'm getting ready to take it out for a bit." "Just a short trip. Is this your boat?" She pressed. Jordan's posture remained relaxed, though he couldn't help but wonder why she asked the question with so much force. "Yes, it is." The woman let out a short, disbelieving breath, almost a scoff. "I don't think so." Jordan paused, unsure how to respond. "I don't think I understand what you mean." She stepped closer, pointing at the deck as if presenting evidence. "This yacht doesn't belong to you. You need to leave before there's trouble." Her words were firm, but more than that. They carried a kind of certainty that came from a place Jordan recognized all too well. A quick judgment, made without reason. Jordan took a slow breath. "Ma'am, I assure you this is my boat. I've had it for years." She shook her head quickly, almost cutting him off with her disbelief. "No, I know the kind of people who own boats like this, and I know for a fact this isn't yours." A couple walking past slowed down, sensing tension. The woman's voice was rising, and the calm marina atmosphere began to shift. Jordan kept his tone even. "I think you might be mistaken." "Mistaken?" She repeated with a laugh that held no humor. "I live in this community. I know who comes and goes. I have never seen you near this boat. You need to leave before I call security." Jordan felt the weight of the situation settle in a familiar heaviness, the kind that came when someone made up their mind about him before he even spoke. But he refused to let frustration guide him. He stayed steady. "I'm here often. Maybe you just haven't noticed." The woman's expression hardened. "Don't talk back to me. I'm telling you that you don't belong on this yacht. So step off it, now." A few slips away, a man tying down his sailboat stopped to watch. Another person paused with their dog. People always slowed down when something felt off, when voices grew sharper. Jordan noticed the attention growing, but he didn't want to escalate anything. He placed his hands on the rail calmly and said, "I'm not stepping off. I haven't done anything wrong." The woman huffed loudly, pulling out her phone. "Fine. If you won't cooperate, I'll let security deal with you." "You're not fooling me." She turned slightly to speak into the phone, pacing with agitation as she reported a man trespassing on a private yacht. Her words carried across the dock, and Jordan could hear her describing him quickly, as if her assumptions were fact. Jordan stayed on the deck, feeling a mix of frustration and exhaustion. He had just wanted a peaceful morning, yet here he was, being challenged for simply preparing his own boat. He wasn't angry, not yet, but he was disappointed. He had hoped encounters like this wouldn't still happen so naturally. A man nearby, the one who had stopped tying his boat, approached gently. "Hey," he said quietly, "I've seen you here before. Are you all right?" Jordan nodded. "I'm fine. Just a misunderstanding." "Seems like more than a misunderstanding," the man replied, glancing toward the woman still pacing with her phone. "Sorry you're dealing with that." Jordan appreciated the kindness. He didn't need anyone to defend him, but it was nice to know not everyone took the woman's approach. Security arrived sooner than expected, a pair of uniformed marina staff riding in a small electric cart. The woman waved them over frantically. "There," she said loudly, pointing straight at Jordan. "He won't get off the boat. I told him to leave, but he's refusing. He's not supposed to be here." Jordan inhaled deeply, bracing himself. The two security officers stepped off the cart and walked toward him. Jordan had known both of them for years. He even greeted them by name. "Morning," he said politely. They smiled back. "Morning. Everything all right here?" One asked Dot before Jordan could answer. The woman jumped in. "No, everything is not all right. He's breaking into someone's yacht. I tried to stop him, but he's ignoring me." The officers exchanged a look, one that showed they recognized Jordan and understood something wasn't lining up. "Ma'am," one of them said gently, "we know him. He's a member here." The woman froze, confusion washing over her face. "What do you mean, you know him?" "He owns that yacht," the officer said plainly. The woman's mouth opened slightly, as if searching for a response that wouldn't come. Her certainty, the confidence she had carried moments before, began slipping from her expression. Still, she tried to recover. "Are you sure? I mean, that can't be right. I've never seen him here." "It's right," the officer repeated. "He's been part of this marina for years." Jordan stayed quiet, watching the woman struggle to accept what she was hearing. Her posture stiffened, and she slowly lowered her phone. People around the dock began drifting away now that the situation was settling. But some stayed close enough to observe, their faces reflecting a mix of curiosity and discomfort. Jordan didn't want to embarrass her. He didn't want to escalate things. He didn't want revenge or a scene. He only wanted peace. "I told you," he said gently. Not in anger, but in calm finality. The woman swallowed hard, her expression shifting through several emotions: surprise, confusion, and something that looked very close to embarrassment. "I must have misunderstood," she muttered, though even she didn't seem convinced by her own excuse. Jordan didn't reply. He simply stepped back onto his deck, picking up the towel he had dropped earlier. He wanted the moment to end. The officers gave him a reassuring nod. "Let us know if you need anything," one said. "I'm good," Jordan replied quietly. As the woman walked away, her pace quick and stiff, Jordan felt the tension in his shoulders ease just a little. The marina slowly returned to its peaceful rhythm, but the weight of the encounter lingered in the air. All he had wanted was a quiet morning. Instead, he had been forced to defend his presence in a place he had belonged to for years. But Jordan knew this was only the beginning of the story, because what happened next would. surprise everyone who had seen the confrontation, including the woman who had tried so hard to push him away. The moment the woman walked away, the marina slowly settled back into its gentle rhythm. But inside, Jordan felt anything but settled. He stood on the deck for a few seconds, letting the soft sway of the boat calm him. The air smelled of salt and sunscreen, the kind of calm scent that usually helped him relax. But not today. He tried to shake it off and return to his checklist, but something inside him lingered on the encounter. It wasn't the first time someone had doubted him for no good reason, but it still stung each time. He wished he had been surprised by it. Instead, it felt like a familiar chapter in a book he didn't want to reread. He reached down to tighten one of the ropes on the dock cleat when footsteps approached, steady. Careful, almost hesitant Dot. It was the man who had spoken to him earlier, the one tying down his sailboat. He looked like he wasn't sure whether to approach or keep his distance. "Hey," the man said softly. "Mind if I check in for a second?" Jordan offered a kind nod. "Sure." The man looked relieved that he hadn't been brushed off. "I wanted to make sure you're all right." That whole thing looked rough. Jordan gave a small smile. "I'm okay. Just another day, I guess." "That's the part that bothers me," the man replied. "That it feels like another day to you." Jordan didn't respond right away, because there wasn't much to say. He appreciated the man's sincerity, though. Kindness from strangers always carried a certain weight. "I'm Owen," the man finally added, offering his hand. Jordan shook it. "Jordan. Well, if you need anything, I'm around," Owen said. "And for what it's worth, I've seen you here plenty of times." Jordan appreciated hearing that. Moments like these reminded him that frustration didn't have to take over everything. After Owen returned to his boat, Jordan went back to his work, double-checking the lines, starting the engine briefly, and making sure all his navigation tools were in good condition. He tried to slip back into the peaceful flow he usually felt while preparing the horizon blue. For a few minutes, it worked. The sound of waves brushing the hull, the gentle hum of the generator, and the distant chatter of people walking the docks blended into a soothing background. But then he heard hurried footsteps. The woman from before had returned, only this time she didn't look agitated. She looked confused, almost unsettled. Jordan glanced at her briefly, then looked away. He didn't want another confrontation. She stood a few feet away, fidgeting with her hands. Excuse me," she said quietly. Jordan paused his work, but didn't turn fully toward her. "Yes, I just wanted to—" She hesitated. "I wanted to clear the air." Jordan wasn't sure what to expect. Her posture was stiff, her voice uneven. "That wasn't my intention," she said, though she didn't seem sure of her own words. "I truly thought you were doing something wrong. I didn't mean for it to escalate." Jordan kept his voice calm. "You told me to get off my own boat." She winced. "I know, and I'm sorry for that. I guess I just misread the situation." Jordan nodded, but didn't offer her an easy way out. "You didn't misread anything. You made a decision based on assumptions." The woman looked down at her shoes, avoiding his eyes. "I guess I did." It wasn't much of an apology, but Jordan wasn't looking for anything more. He didn't want a dramatic moment or a long emotional explanation. He just wanted fairness, awareness, something honest. "I hope you have a good rest of your day," he said gently. She seemed surprised at how calm he was. Without another word, she nodded and walked away, though her steps were slower this time, less certain, less proud. Jordan let out a quiet breath he hadn't realized he was holding. But little did he know, this wasn't the end of it. After a few minutes, Owen appeared again, this time holding a small camera in his hand. "Hey," he called. "I don't know if this matters to you, but recorded a bit of what happened earlier. Jordan blinked, surprised. You recorded it? Not the whole thing, Owen said. Just when she started getting loud. I didn't want things to get twisted later. I thought you might want a copy, just in case. Jordan appreciated the gesture, though he felt a mix of feelings about it. He didn't love the idea of being recorded, but he understood why Owen did it. Thanks, Jordan said. I'm not sure I'll need it, but I appreciate you looking out. Owen hesitated. Do you think she'll stir up more trouble? Jordan thought for a moment. Hard to say. But I hope not. He didn't want to assume the worst about her. Not when she had already come back with something that looked like an apology, an imperfect one, but still an effort. Jordan decided to set aside the morning's drama and focus on something brighter. He stepped onto the dock and began unloading a small basket of snacks he had brought: fruit, sandwiches, a couple of bottles of sparkling water. He planned to take the boat out for a bit and clear his head. Just as he started arranging things on the deck, Owen came back again, this time with someone else behind him. Sorry to bother you again, Owen said with a sheepish grin. This is Mia. She was on the dock earlier too. She saw everything. Mia offered a small wave. Hi, I just wanted to say I'm sorry you had to go through that. It felt wrong watching it happen. Jordan nodded, touched by the support. Thank you. I appreciate that. Mia shifted her weight. She shouldn't have talked to you like that. Nobody should be treated like that. Jordan offered a warm smile. I know, but I'm all right. It happens, unfortunately. Owen looked frustrated on Jordan's behalf. It shouldn't happen at all. Jordan didn't disagree. He just didn't want to spend the whole day soaked in negativity. Look, he said kindly. Thank you both for checking in. Really, but I'm okay. Just trying to get the boat ready for a little trip. Mia smiled softly. Well, if you ever want company out there, I make excellent sandwiches. Jordan chuckled. Good to know. Owen nudged her playfully. He's being polite. Your sandwiches are average at best. Mia gasped. Wow, betrayal. Their light-hearted banter helped Jordan shake off the last of the tension in his chest. He felt grateful, not because strangers had come to his defense, but because they had approached him with sincerity, humanity, and kindness. After they walked away, Jordan finished setting up his supplies and stepped behind the wheel. He started the engine again, listening to the soft rumble beneath his feet. The water stretched out before him, calm and inviting, and for a moment everything felt right again. But just as he was about to untie the last rope, one of the marina staff hurried over. Hey, Jordan, the employee said, catching his breath. Can I talk to you for a second? Jordan nodded. Sure. What's up? The staff member glanced around, lowering his voice. It's about the woman from earlier. She went to the marina office. Jordan's eyebrows pulled together. What for? She filed a complaint. Jordan blinked. Against me? The staff member nodded slowly. Jordan's heart sank, not in fear, but in exhaustion. He had hoped the issue would fade away, but instead it had grown roots. What did she say? Jordan asked. She told the office she felt unsafe and said you were aggressive with her. Jordan stared at him in disbelief. Aggressive? The staff member raised a hand quickly. Don't worry. We know it isn't true. We've seen you here for years. But the thing is, once a complaint is filed, the office has to review it. Jordan leaned back slightly, processing the news. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't stepped toward her. He hadn't done anything but stand on his own boat and talk calmly. Why would she do that? Jordan murmured, mostly to himself. The staff member sighed. Some people have trouble admitting when they're wrong. Jordan knew that was true. He also knew that sometimes a person made a mistake so publicly that they felt too embarrassed to accept it. Still, a false complaint could complicate things. "Do I need to come into the office?" he asked. "Not right now," the staff member said. "Management wants to gather statements first, but they might talk to you later today." Jordan nodded. "All right. Thanks for telling me." The employee gave him a sympathetic look before jogging back toward the main building. Jordan stood still for a long moment, the rope in his hand forgotten. He had tried to be calm. He had tried to keep the peace. He had even accepted her awkward apology. But now the situation had taken another turn he didn't expect. He stepped back onto the deck slowly, feeling the gentle movement of the boat beneath him. He didn't know what would happen next, but he had a feeling the day was far from over. Jordan stayed still for a long moment after the staff member walked away. The gentle rocking of the boat usually soothed him, but now it only reminded him how quickly a peaceful morning had turned into a tangle of problems. He looked out at the open water, wishing he could just start the engine and leave everything behind. But the marina office would eventually want to talk, and leaving now might make things look worse. He took a slow breath and sat down on one of the cushioned benches on the deck, trying to gather his thoughts. The sun was climbing higher, warming the side of his face, and he closed his eyes for a moment just to feel something steady. Footsteps sounded behind him again. This time, it was one of the security officers who had helped earlier. "Hey," the officer said, stepping lightly onto the dock. "Mind if I come aboard?" Jordan opened his eyes and nodded. "Yeah, sure." The officer stepped onto the deck carefully and took a seat across from him. "I wanted to talk to you before the office calls you in, just so you're not caught off guard." Jordan nodded again. "I appreciate that." The officer rubbed the back of his neck. "She didn't just say she felt unsafe. She said you raised your voice, got in her space, and refused to leave when she asked." Jordan frowned. "None of that happened." "I know," the officer replied. "We were watching half the time. If you'd done anything like that, we would have stepped in long before she called us." "Then why file a complaint?" Jordan asked softly, half frustrated, half tired. The officer gave a slow exhale. "Honestly? Embarrassment. People like her don't like being wrong. And when they get corrected in front of other people, well, some try to rewrite the story." Jordan leaned back, staring at the calm water. "I didn't want any trouble. I was just doing my own thing." "I know," the officer said, "and the marina knows. But the office still needs to document everything, so they're going to talk to everyone involved." Jordan nodded slowly. He didn't like the idea of sitting through an official review for something he didn't do, but he also understood it was protocol. "I want to be clear," the officer continued. "You're not in any danger of losing your membership or anything. You're respected here. People know you." That made Jordan feel a little better, but not completely. After the officer left, Jordan got up and walked to the edge of the dock, looking down at the reflections in the water. The ripples broke apart the image of the sky, shifting it into soft, wavering lines. He wished his thoughts would settle the same way, slowly easing apart until nothing sharp remained. But then he heard another voice, calling his name. It was Mia again, this time carrying a large insulated bottle. She jogged over and smiled gently. "Hey," she said. "Thought you might want some iced tea. You look like you could use something cold." Jordan couldn't help but smile. "Thanks. You didn't have to do that." "Trust me," she said. "I know what a stressful morning face looks like. Yours is at about 70%. I need a break." Jordan laughed softly. "Is that your official reading?" "It is," she said firmly. "Certified and everything." Her humor eased some of the tension in his chest. He took the bottle and drank a little. The cool tea helped. "What's going on now?" she asked, leaning lightly on the rail. Jordan hesitated. He didn't want to bother her with the details, but part of him needed to say it out loud. She filed a complaint against me, he finally said. Mia's eyebrows shot up. What? How? She said I was aggressive toward her. Mia shook her head immediately. No way, I was right there. You didn't raise your voice once. I know, Jordan said. But now I have to talk to the marina office. Mia let out a sigh. I'm sorry you're getting dragged through this. If they need witnesses, I'll talk to them. I'll tell them exactly what I saw. Thanks, Jordan said softly. Mia stayed beside him for a few minutes, talking about anything but the incident. She told him about her dog, about how she once tried to take a paddleboard out on a windy day and ended up drifting sideways into a group of kids splashing near the beach. Her stories were simple and funny, and they helped Jordan feel a little lighter. Eventually, she had to leave for a work call, but she promised to check in later. Jordan went back to his boat, trying again to get it ready to leave, but the marina staff approached once more. Jordan, the office would like you to come in now. He nodded, took a breath, and followed them. The marina office was a small building near the main entrance. Inside, the air conditioning hummed softly, and the walls were decorated with pictures of boats, maps, and community event posters. Jordan had been inside many times, usually for friendly reasons, like renewing his membership or chatting with the staff. Today felt different. He was led into a private room where two managers sat at a desk. They greeted him kindly, but he could tell by their serious expressions that they were handling the situation carefully. Jordan, one of them began, thanks for coming in. We just want to go over what happened this morning. You're not in trouble. We just need your side of things. Jordan nodded. I understand. Can you walk us through it? The manager asked. Jordan told them everything, how he was preparing his boat, how the woman approached him, what she said, how he responded, how security arrived. He didn't exaggerate anything. He didn't add frustration or blame. He simply told the truth. When he finished, the managers exchanged a look. One of the officers already spoke to us, the second manager said. His report matches yours exactly. Jordan nodded, relieved. We also talked to two witnesses on the dock, the manager continued. They both confirmed you were calm and never acted aggressive. Jordan felt his shoulders relax a little. And, the manager added with a small smile, we've known you for years. We've never had a single issue with you. Jordan let out a small breath. Thank you. We'll still need to officially close the complaint, the manager explained. But right now, it looks like the incident was caused by a misunderstanding and some assumptions. Jordan nodded silently. We're also talking to her, the manager added gently. We want to make sure this kind of situation doesn't repeat. Jordan appreciated that. More than anything, he wanted the marina to stay a place where everyone felt safe and respected. After answering a few more questions, he was told he could return to his boat. As he walked back across the docks, several people he recognized gave him friendly nods and small smiles, as if to say they had heard what happened and were on his side. Jordan didn't know how many people had seen the confrontation, but it was clear the story had traveled. When he reached his boat, Owen was there again, sitting casually on the edge of the dock. How'd it go? Owen asked. Jordan sat beside him. They believe me. They said the reports match my story. Good, Owen said with relief. I knew they would. Jordan nodded. I just wish it never happened. Owen kicked his feet lightly above the water. You know, some people don't realize how fast they assume things. They think they're protecting something, when really they're just making things harder for others. Jordan didn't disagree. A few minutes later, they both noticed someone walking down the dock, the woman. She wasn't storming this time. She wasn't pacing. She wasn't stiff with anger. She looked nervous. She stopped a few feet away, hands clasped tightly in front of her. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" she asked quietly. Jordan studied her expression. She looked different now, not defensive, not confrontational. Just uneasy. He nodded. "All right." Owen stood up as if ready to leave, but Jordan gave him a small motion to stay nearby. The woman took a deep breath. "The office talked to me," she said. "They told me the witnesses and security said you didn't do anything wrong." Jordan nodded politely. "I realize now that I was wrong," she continued, her voice softer than before. "I shouldn't have assumed anything. I shouldn't have spoken to you the way I did. And I definitely shouldn't have filed that complaint." Jordan didn't speak right away. He let her finish. "I'm embarrassed," she admitted, "not because they corrected me, but because I realize how unfair I was to you." Her voice trembled slightly. "I'm sorry, truly." Jordan looked at her for a long moment. He could see that this wasn't the forced apology from earlier. This was different. This one came from a place of reflection, not pride. "It was a difficult morning," Jordan said quietly. "But I appreciate you coming back and saying that." The woman nodded, relief flickering across her face. "Thank you for hearing me." She stepped back and gave him a small, grateful nod before walking away slowly. Owen whispered, "Well?" That looked uncomfortable for her. Jordan shrugged gently. Growth usually is. He stood up and finally felt ready to take the boat out. But before he untied the ropes, he paused. Double quotes. "Hey, Owen," Jordan said. "You doing anything right now?" Owen raised an eyebrow. "Not really. Why? Want to come for a short ride?" Owen brightened. "Seriously?" "Yeah, I'd love to." Jordan smiled. "Grab your stuff." As Owen jogged to his boat, Jordan stepped back onto horizon blue and looked around the marina. The day hadn't gone the way he planned, but something good had come out of it: understanding, honesty, and a reminder that not everyone jumped to the worst conclusions. Some people stayed. Some people listened. Some people showed kindness. And Jordan chose to focus on them. As the boat engine rumbled to life and the dock drifted slowly behind him. Jordan felt the weight of the morning finally lift, but he didn't know that the story was far from over, because what happened next would change everything for everyone who witnessed the confrontation, including the woman who had nearly pushed. Part 4 story content goes here to 1,700 words in simple, natural English, continuing seamlessly from earlier parts without headings. The afternoon sun sat a little lower in the sky, casting long, soft shadows across the marina. The air was warm, but not heavy, filled with the distant chug of boat engines and the faint splash of water hitting the docks. The man stood quietly beside his yacht, letting the moment settle. He wasn't shaken, but he wasn't numb either. It was a strange in-between feeling, like standing after a long wave had hit, but before the next one arrived, security had already walked away after confirming what he had told them. The crowd around him had mostly thinned, though a few people still lingered, whispering to one another. Some gave him nods of respect, others apologetic smiles, and a few simply avoided eye contact because they didn't know what to say. But the woman didn't leave. She stood several feet away, stiff as a fence post. Her arms were locked over her chest, and her eyes darted around like she was trying to find a way out without admitting she had been wrong. She looked smaller than she had before, less sure, less loud. But there was something else in her face that he couldn't ignore: confusion. Not the kind that comes from being caught, but the kind that comes from realizing the world is not the way you thought it was. He didn't like seeing anyone humiliated, even someone who had wronged him. And he especially didn't like that this had become a spectacle. He had lived long enough to know that public embarrassment rarely changed anyone for the better. Quiet reflection did. Calm truth did. So instead of packing up and leaving or pretending she wasn't nearby. He took a slow breath and walked toward her. Not with anger, not with triumph, but with a steady calm that made her stiffen even more. "You don't have to stay," he said gently. "The situation is over." She blinked, surprised by the softness of his tone. I thought security might want to talk to me again." "They already handled everything," he replied. "You're free to go." She hesitated, her jaw tightening. "I didn't mean for it to get that far." Her voice cracked slightly, barely noticeable unless someone was paying attention. It didn't look right." He nodded once. "I understand what you're trying to say. But the truth is, it looked wrong to you because you made assumptions about me." She flinched at that, looking down at the wooden planks of the dock. I saw someone I didn't recognize near a boat that looked." She trailed off as if the words became too heavy. "I reacted too fast." He let her finish at her own pace, not interrupting or filling the silence. When she finally looked back up, her expression was tighter, pained even. "It wasn't fair," he said quietly. "Not to me. Not to anyone watching either." She swallowed hard. "I know." For a moment, nothing else moved. The boats bobbed gently in the water. Ropes creaked against metal rings. A gull cried overhead, but the two of them stood still, locked in a moment neither of them planned for. "I didn't expect things to turn into a whole scene," she admitted. "I didn't think security would, recognize you like that." He tilted his head slightly. "It shouldn't take someone knowing me to treat me fairly." That line hit her harder than anything else. She looked down again, her shoulders curling inward. "Can I ask you something?" She said quietly, "Of course. Why didn't you get angry?" "Most people would have yelled at me, or recorded me, or tried to embarrass me back." He thought about that for a moment, then replied, "Because anger doesn't teach anything, and recording people only makes them defensive. It turns a problem into a punishment. I wanted the moment to mean something, not just trend for a day." She blinked fast, as if trying to hold back emotions she didn't want to show. "I saw the look on your face earlier," he continued. "You weren't just upset. You really believed something bad was happening. The problem was the lens you were looking through. That's what we need to talk about, not the scene, not the crowd, not the embarrassment. Just the truth." She nodded slowly. "I guess I've had certain ideas in my head for a long time." He didn't press her to explain. He didn't need the details. The patterns were familiar. The assumptions, the snap judgments. He had seen them more times than he cared to remember. "Change doesn't start with trying to defend what you did," he said calmly. "It starts with being honest about why you did it." Her eyes softened for the first time since the whole incident began. "You're right. I thought I knew what was happening, but I didn't. I reacted because I thought something looked wrong, and I didn't think twice about why I felt that way." He nodded. "That's the part that matters. Understanding that feeling." She took a small step back and looked over at his yacht, a sleek, polished vessel that caught the fading sunlight beautifully. Her face shifted again, this time with embarrassment mixed with realization. "I really didn't think it was yours," she said. Her voice faint. "I noticed," he replied, but not harshly. She looked at him again. "How long have you had it?" 7 years. "And you've been here this whole time?" "On this dock." Same slip number. There was a long pause. "I guess I never paid attention," she whispered. "Most people don't look unless they're looking for trouble," he said gently. She took in a shaky breath, then asked something he didn't expect. Is it okay if I apologize?" "You just did," he replied. "But if you want to say more, I'm listening." She looked him straight in the eyes this time. "I judged you fully and unfairly, and I'm sorry for that." He accepted the apology with a calm nod. Thank you. Something in her posture softened, like a wall had loosened inside her, even if it hadn't completely fallen. She glanced around at the marina again, at the people pretending not to watch, at the security office in the distance, at the boat swaying gently. I didn't realize you were involved with the marina, she said. Security mentioned something about improvements you helped pay for. He shrugged lightly. This place means a lot to me. I grew up near the water. Being here changed my life. So when the marina needed help, I had the ability to do something. That's all. She stared at him with a look he couldn't quite read. Respect? Regret? Maybe both. I think people sometimes assume success looks a certain way, he said. But life doesn't work like that. People come from everywhere. Stories start in all kinds of places. She nodded again. I think I needed to hear that. He didn't smile, but his expression softened. It's okay to learn. It's okay to make mistakes. What matters is what you do after. She let out a long breath, almost like a sigh. I'm going to think about this for a long time. That's all I could ask for, he replied. Another silence passed, but this time it wasn't heavy or awkward. It felt like a pause for breathing, like the calm that settles after a storm moves on. Will you be all right? He asked. She nodded. Yes, and I hope you will be too. He gave a small, honest nod. I'm fine. She looked at him one last time before stepping back. Thank you for talking to me. Thank you for listening. With that, she turned and walked slowly down the dock, not rushing, not hiding, but taking each step like she was carrying something she intended to set down later when she had the space to think. He watched her go for a moment, then turned back to his yacht. The marina felt different now, quieter even though the sounds around him hadn't changed. He placed his hand on the rail of the boat, feeling the cool smoothness of the metal. He had a lot to reflect on too, not in anger, but in understanding. These moments, as frustrating as they were, held opportunities. Not the kind found in business or money, but the kind that changed people, even in small ways. And sometimes, small changes were the beginning of something bigger. He climbed onto his yacht again, ready to continue his day, not weighed down by what had happened, but quietly hopeful that the conversation might echo longer than the confrontation ever would. The water glistened as the sun dipped lower, and for the first time since the incident started, the marina felt peaceful again. Part 5 story content goes here minus 1,700 words in simple, natural English, continuing seamlessly from earlier parts without headings. The sun had almost disappeared behind the line of rooftops near the marina when everything began to shift in ways no one expected. What had started as a tense confrontation earlier in the day had now become something much bigger. People kept talking. People kept sharing. And without either of them knowing it yet, the story was already moving far beyond the dock. The man didn't realize how many people had been recording small pieces of the scene. He didn't pay attention to who had their phones out and who didn't. He had been focused on staying calm and handling the moment with dignity. But others had seen a different angle, a misunderstanding that could have gone wrong, but didn't, because he refused to let emotions take over as evening settled. He sat inside the cabin of his yacht, letting the quiet hum of the small generator soothe the leftover stress in his body. He wasn't angry anymore, not even bothered. He was simply thinking. The kind of thinking that makes a person replay everything in slow motion, searching for meaning where there once was only chaos. He didn't think of himself as a hero or a victim or anything special. He was just someone who wanted to enjoy the water, who wanted a quiet afternoon, and who ended up facing something he didn't ask for. Yet even now, he felt strangely calm. Maybe because deep down, he knew he had handled things the way he believed people should, with patience, with maturity, with a little hope that conversations, even difficult ones, could still make a difference. But while he sat quietly, the marina had started buzzing again. A couple who lived nearby had uploaded a short clip online, a simple, shaky video showing the woman confronting him, shouting assumptions that weren't true, and security quickly clearing things up. They didn't add dramatic music or big captions. They simply posted it with a simple line: "This shouldn't still be happening." Within an hour, the video had been shared dozens of times. Within 2 hours, hundreds. By nightfall, thousands. He didn't know any of this yet. He only heard a faint knock on the side of his boat, followed by a familiar voice calling gently, "You all right in there?" It was one of the security staff, the same man who had recognized him earlier. He stepped out onto the deck. "I'm fine," he said. "Just winding down." The guard nodded. "Just wanted to check in." Well, things spread fast around here. He raised an eyebrow. "Spread? You'll probably find out soon enough," the guard said with a small, knowing sigh. People recorded the incident. Some posted clips online. He closed his eyes for a moment, not out of frustration, but out of silent reflection. Of course someone posted. That's how the world worked now. But he didn't feel scared or embarrassed. He just hoped the situation wasn't twisted into something ugly. "Do I need to worry about any misinformation?" he asked. "Not from what I saw," the guard replied. "Most people who shared it were supportive. They were upset about what happened, but they were also impressed by how you handled it." He didn't feel pride at that. He wasn't looking for applause. But there was comfort in knowing the truth was being seen. "Thanks for telling me," he said. The guard nodded again. "If you need anything, we're around." And with that, he headed back down the dock. After he left, the man stayed outside for a while, letting the breeze cool his face. The water glimmered under the moonlight now, little waves tapping softly against the hull of the boat. It usually calmed him, and tonight was no different. He went back inside, checked his phone out of habit, and that's when he saw it. Messages, missed calls, notifications, all piling up. Friends were texting things like, "Is this you in this video? Man, you handled that well. Proud of you. Hope you're okay. Just saw what happened." He opened one link, then another, and suddenly the whole screen filled with clips of the incident. Some short, showing only a few seconds. Some longer, showing the entire exchange from different angles. He watched quietly, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Not anger, not embarrassment, but a deep, reflective kind of tiredness. The comments were endless. That man stayed calm the whole time. Wow. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He handled it better than most people could. Proud of how he stood his ground. This is why communication matters. Glad. Security cleared it up quickly. And then there were comments that made him pause. "I hope the woman learns from this. She looked embarrassed. Maybe that's a good thing. I hope she apologizes properly." He leaned back in his seat, staring at the glowing screen. He didn't know how to feel about all these strangers watching a moment he never wanted shared. But something inside him settled when he noticed that people weren't focusing on anger, they were focusing on understanding. And that felt different from what he expected. He turned off the screen for a while and just sat, thinking again. Meanwhile, not far from the marina, the woman was in her house, pacing small circles in her living room. She had already received texts, some from neighbors, asking if she was okay. Some from people who saw the video and recognized her, even though she wished they hadn't. Her face was pale with worry. She hadn't expected the moment to go beyond the dock, let alone online. She had acted without thinking, reacting based on a feeling she couldn't explain and didn't want to admit to herself. And now the world outside her window felt heavier. When her phone buzzed again, she nearly jumped. It was a message from a neighbor she barely knew. Maybe you should talk to him again. Might help clear your mind. She stared at the message for a full minute. Another message followed. Everybody makes mistakes. It's how we handle them that matters. She set her phone down, feeling her chest tighten. She wasn't afraid of being scolded or judged. She was afraid of facing the truth inside herself, the part she had been avoiding for years. She didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, the marina was quieter than usual. A light fog had rolled in, covering the boats and the dock in a soft gray blanket. The man arrived early, wanting a moment of peace before the day picked up. He walked slowly along the dock, coffee in hand, enjoying the cool air. When he reached his yacht, he paused. Someone was standing beside it. The woman. She wasn't standing stiffly like before. She wasn't defensive or angry. She looked tired, nervous, and strangely humble. He approached slowly. "Morning," he said gently. She turned, forcing a small smile. "Good morning. I hope it's okay that I'm here." His tone stayed calm. "It's all right." She took a breath. "I saw the videos. I didn't know people recorded everything." He nodded. "I found out too." Another breath. Her hands trembled slightly. "I want to say that I'm sorry again. Not because people saw. Not because I'm embarrassed. But because I've had a lot of time to think. And I realized how wrong I was. How fast I judged. How unfair I was to you." He listened silently, giving her the space to speak. "I don't want people to think I'm someone who hates others," she continued softly. "I'm not. But I know that doesn't excuse what I did. I acted without thinking, and I know I hurt you." "You didn't hurt me," he said gently. "You surprised me. There's a difference." She looked at him with confusion. "Why aren't you angry?" He shrugged slightly. "Because anger doesn't fix anything. And you're here now. That means more than anything that happened yesterday." Her eyes watered not from sadness, but from relief. "Thank you," she whispered. They stood there in quiet for a moment, listening to the distant call of a bird and the soft tapping of water against the dock. Finally, she spoke again. "I've been thinking about going to the Marina Association. I want to talk about what happened. Not to defend myself, just to take responsibility." He looked at her with gentle surprise. "You don't have to do that." "I think I do," she said. "People should know that I'm trying to learn. And I don't want to hide from what I did." He nodded thoughtfully. "If you want support during that, I'll be there. You don't have to face it alone." She blinked, stunned. "Why would you help me?" "Because growth doesn't happen in isolation," he replied. "And because I don't want this moment to define you. Not if you're willing to grow from it." She looked down, smiling faintly at the ground, as if hearing something she didn't expect, but needed. The fog lifted slowly as they talked, revealing the calm water glistening under the rising sun. The marina began to come alive again, voices in the distance. Motors starting, birds circling overhead. And in that gentle morning light, something shifted. A misunderstanding had turned into a moment of accountability. A confrontation had turned into reflection. A mistake had turned into a chance for change. He didn't know how the rest of the world would respond to the videos. He didn't know what people online would say tomorrow or the next day. He didn't care. What mattered was standing in front of him, a real person trying to do better. And that, to him, was enough. They talked a while longer, not as enemies or strangers, but as two people trying to make sense of a difficult moment. When they finally went their separate ways, the marina felt calmer than it had since the whole thing began, and as he stepped back onto his yacht, he felt something he hadn't felt in days. Hope, not just for himself, but for everyone involved. The room felt different after the director spoke those words. It was as if the air shifted, growing warmer and lighter, while at the same time heavier with the meaning of what had just happened. The boy stood very still, almost afraid to breathe. His father stared at the director, trying to understand fully what he meant. The rest of the creative team watched quietly, giving the moment space, as if they knew how important it was. The boy blinked slowly. "The lead?" he whispered. The director nodded. His voice was calm, but his eyes held excitement he could no longer hide. "Yes, you're the one we want. The one who fits the story in a way we didn't expect. You brought something to it that none of us could ignore. You earned this." The father let out a breath that sounded like he had been holding it for years. His hand covered his mouth for a moment before he looked at his son with eyes full of pride, disbelief, and something like wonder. "You did it," he murmured. "You really did it." The boy didn't smile right away. The news hit him slowly, sinking deep inside as if it needed time to settle into place. He had dreamed of something like this, without even admitting it to himself. But dreaming is different from living it. Now it felt real, too real, almost. Like something big enough to change everything. The director placed a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder. "You will have a lot to learn, a lot to prepare for. The filming schedule will be long. There will be long days, rehearsals, and moments when you will feel tired. But I want you to remember something very important. We chose you not because you are perfect, but because you are real. And that's what this story needs." The boy finally let himself breathe. He nodded slowly, absorbing every word. One of the producers stepped forward, offering a polite smile. "We will meet again soon," he sighed. "There are papers to sign, arrangements to make, schedules to follow. But today is for celebrating. Today is for you." The assistant coordinator added softly, "You have something rare. Don't lose it. Don't try to change who you are. That honesty is your gift." The boy didn't fully understand, but the warmth in their voices comforted him. He glanced at his father, and their eyes met. In that moment, the boy knew all the hard days, all the moments of doubt and silence at home, all the whispered worries. They had led to something bright. The director spoke again. "Take the rest of the day off. Enjoy this moment. Tomorrow, everything begins." The boy nodded and gathered his things, still a little dazed. His father placed a hand on his back as they walked out of the studio. The building felt bigger than usual, as if it held secrets that were only now being revealed. Outside, the sun had fully risen, casting a warm golden glow over the streets. The boy stopped for a moment on the sidewalk, letting the sunlight hit his face. It felt gentle, reassuring. His father looked down at him. "How do you feel?" he asked quietly. The boy thought for a moment. Then he said softly, "Different, but good." His father chuckled lightly. "That sounds about right." They walked home slowly, as if they didn't want the moment to end too quickly. The boy carried the memory of the director's words with him the whole way, repeating them silently. "You are the one we want." Every time he replayed them, something warm spread through him. When they reached home, the father opened the door and let the boy step inside first. The house felt smaller somehow, not because it had changed, but because the boy had. He placed the script gently on the table, as if it were no longer just paper. It was the beginning of a new world. His father sat down on the couch, rubbing his eyes. "I still can't believe it," he said with a soft laugh. "My kid, the lead." The boy sat beside him quietly. "Do you think I can really do it?" he asked. His father turned to him. "I know you can. I've seen the way you worked, the way you spoke those lines. I've seen the feeling in your voice, the focus in your eyes. This wasn't luck. This was you, and you're ready for it." The boy leaned against him slightly, something he hadn't done in a long time. His father didn't move. He stayed still, letting the boy rest his head gently on his shoulder. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Later that afternoon, the boy went to his room and sat at his desk. He opened the script again, not to study, but to reflect. He looked at the words differently, now not as lines to memorize, but as pieces of a story he would soon bring to life. He ran his fingers over the pages, imagining the scenes, the lights, the camera, the people watching him from behind the lens. It felt surreal, but also right. As the days passed, everything began to change quickly. Meetings were scheduled. Contracts were prepared. New faces greeted him every day at the studio. He met the costume designer, the makeup artist, the set crew, and other performers. Some were older, some were around his age, but all of them seemed impressed by how calm and focused he was. The director introduced him to everyone personally, always with pride in his voice. "This is our lead," he would say. The boy always blushed slightly, but he listened closely, wanting to learn as much as he could. During rehearsals, the director pushed him not harshly, but carefully, with purpose. "You don't need to act," the director often reminded him. "Just feel the moment. Let the story move through you. Don't force anything." And the boy did exactly that. The more he rehearsed, the more natural everything felt. He discovered new emotions in the lines he had already memorized. He learned how to look at the camera without thinking too much. He learned how to breathe during tense scenes and how to relax between takes. The cast and crew began to see what the director had seen from the start. The boy had something inside him, something raw but powerful, something genuine. His father visited the studio often, sitting quietly while the boy rehearsed. He didn't speak much, but the boy could always feel his presence. Always steady, always supportive. One afternoon, after a long rehearsal, the director walked up to the father. "He's growing every day," the director said. "You should be proud." The father nodded, his voice low. "I am, more than I can say." And the boy, overhearing from a few feet away, felt something warm settle in his chest. Filming began soon after. The first day on set was overwhelming. At first, cameras everywhere, lights bright enough to warm the entire room, people moving quickly to prepare every detail. But once the director called, "Action!" the boy felt everything fall into place. He stepped into the scene, into the story, into the place he belonged. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. The boy worked hard, learning something new. Every day, some scenes were easy, some were emotional, some took several tries. But through it all, the boy remained steady, focused, and sincere. People on the set began talking about him. They said he had something rare, something you couldn't teach. They said he was going to be someone important someday. The director only said one thing whenever he heard such comments: "He already is." When filming finally ended, everyone clapped for him. Some hugged him, others shook his hand. But the boy only smiled shyly, feeling thankful for everything. The father stood nearby, tears quietly running down his cheeks. "You did it," he whispered again, "just like the first day. You really did it." The boy hugged him tightly this time, without hesitation. Months later, when the film finally premiered, the boy and his father sat together in the theater. As the screen lit up and the story unfolded, the boy watched himself with disbelief. He wasn't just reading lines anymore. He was living them. And when the credits rolled, the audience stood up. They clapped. They cheered. Some even wiped tears from their eyes. The boy looked around. Stunned. His father leaned close and whispered, "This is only the beginning." The boy didn't respond immediately. He looked at the screen one more time, and at his father. Finally, he smiled. He had come a long way from the quiet auditions, the uncertainty, the fear of not being enough. The director had tested him once, doubting him like everyone else. But seconds later, he couldn't believe his ears. And now the world couldn't either.